If you've ever wanted to win some cash and play some League of Legends with me, then check out the free contest on Alpha Draft. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. I think it's about time to finally re-update my top 5 underrated AP mid laners. This is one of my favorite lists to update because I really enjoy playing champions that are more or less out of the meta, or just champions that you don't really see many other people play. And it's even cooler when you do really well on this champion and the enemy team is just so surprised at this champion that they almost never see, especially in the mid lane, is absolutely dominating. So before I go into the number 5 spot, don't forget this is again my personal opinion of the top 5 underrated champions for mid lane. And I'm also going to be basing this list off of champions 1 that I don't really see often whatsoever, whether it's in my solo queue games or in the LCS. And 2, these are champions that I myself am not really playing as much as I feel like I should be, but these are all champions I want to pick up and get a lot better with as well. So truly the underdog mid laners. Kicking it all off is going to be our favorite ninja Yordle, Kennen. This is the champion I did include in my previous iteration of the top 5 underrated list, and I still have to include him here just a bit lower on the list. I still really think he's a good champion, and I'm surprised I don't see more Kennens. I mean, his Q has great damage, you can spam it quite often, decent poke as well whenever you're trying to lane or just siege down a tower. His ultimate is very strong in team fights, being able to CC down many people at the same time while activating your W as well and your E ability. But at the same time with his ultimate, he can also lock down one single target in, for instance, a 1 versus 1 duel for a very long time, probably proccing your passive on them twice. Dealing an insane amount of damage, being able to stun them very quickly, guaranteeing you that you will land your Q and then follow up with another stun and more damage. And I promise you, a lot of people are not going to be respecting the Kennen all-in at level 6 with your flash. All you have to do is activate your E, flash on top of them, pop your ultimate, activate your W, they get stunned, Q them, and then they're probably dead. But speaking of his E, it's a very good ability because it gives him a lot of resistances when you activate it, gives him extra move space so that you can initiate or escape if you really have to. And his E ability is his primary way to engage a fight, especially with his ultimate. The cons of Kennen is that he is very ultimate reliant. If you don't have your ultimate, it's going to be very difficult to CC down a target, let alone more than one. Because think about it, without your ultimate, you require almost every single one of your abilities just to stun one target. Not very efficient. His laning phase is not too bad, but it really isn't the best because if the opponent just stands behind minions, well, you're not going to be landing any Qs. Which is why most people actually max their W first. So in the laning phase, you play him more of an auto-attacking assassin rather than a spell-casting assassin. And the final thing is that he's very reliant, like I said, on his ultimate, but also his flash to hard engage on the backline in team fights. Usually just your E ability is not enough to get through the whole tank line and get to the very back of the team fight to get their enemy squishies like their ADC or mid laner. But on the flip side, if you do have flash, you can get on them and CC them down and absolutely burst them. Overall, I think Kennen is a very solid pick and heavily underrated. But as we move forward with this list, in the number 4 spot, we're going to be seeing Karthus. He is also a champion I included in the previous iteration of this list, and I have to include him again because I just simply don't see Karthus almost anywhere. He's a great champion for solo queue and even organized play because he has so much presence in a team fight, he scales so damn well into late game, and his ultimate being able to hit everyone, especially while he's just sitting in the mid lane not moving an inch, is really useful. So the great thing about Karthus is that as he continues to scale further and further into the game, his ultimate ends up doing about half HP to the squishies. And thanks to his passive, it's almost guaranteed that you'll always get your ultimate off in a team fight no matter what happens. But moving back in time a little bit to the laning phase, I still think he's a very solid laner, surprisingly safe even though he's very vulnerable in terms of being able to escape. His range on his Q is very respectable, which allows him to farm from a very good distance. He's not really forced to go for a kill in the laning phase because, like I said, as you hit level 6, you just pop that ultimate and you start farming up the assists and kills. One of the best things about Karthus, and this also applies to Cassiopeia, is the fact that he is insanely strong when it comes to doing Baron or Dragon, with his Q doing, of course, the full damage to the Baron or Dragon every second. You're able to sneak these bad boys in just a few seconds. And arguably, he is one of the best, if not top 3 champions when it comes to the speed in terms of how fast he can do Baron and Dragon. I find Karthus to be a difficult champion to just counter or stop. I mean, yeah, you can get a Zhonya's or a Banshee's Veil to counter his ultimate, but in team fights, Karthus is one of the few mages that actually wants to go in the middle of the fight, pop his E ability, wall everyone in to reduce their MR and slow them down, and just start spamming away your Q. A lot of the time, he will be able to do so much damage in team fights, and there's very little things you can do about it unless you're very coordinated and you can kite him back very well. However, the cons of Karthus is the fact that he's of course very reliant on his Q, and if you miss too many of them, well, you're gonna be missing a lot of your damage. His poke is not too bad when it comes to sieging down towers, but it really isn't the best when you compare to, for instance, the number 1 champion I have in this list, or someone like a Zara. But moving down the line, the number 3 spot is going to be given to Anivia. This is one of the few champions who I'm honestly very scared of facing because I really know the power of Anivia in the right hands. Since I personally really enjoy playing assassins, I think Anivia is just so good against them. And the main reason for that is because she has one of the best control powers in the game. Now what I mean by that is that she can really determine how a battle goes based on her abilities. Her ultimate can slow down a whole team, her wall can flat out displace teams and catch people off guard very easily, and she has really good pick potential with her Q, and when you put it all together, you have a lot of control. The damage on her E ability, especially only at level 3, is just flat out absurd. I mean, if you land your Q, you apply your passive, they'll take so much damage from your E ability that probably one more time like that and they're back into base if not dead. I also think she has one of the best passives in the game. Now, a lot of champions like Anivia, Karthus, and even the first place champion I'll mention soon have very large issues when it comes to being able to escape ganks. But Anivia, thanks to her passive, if she does die under tower, well, hey, I want to get right back up and maybe kill you. So more or less, it really is like a free Guardian's Angel. If you place down your ultimate within a teamfight in the right and proper way, I mean, you will honestly change that teamfight just from that ultimate alone. And like I said, when you throw in every single other ability that you have, you're just gonna be able to do so much in that teamfight. The cons of Anivia is that she is a close ranged mage. Now she can't really do a whole lot when it comes to sieging, and she can't really poke a lot either, but if you get too close to her, she's gonna really do a lot of damage. Her playstyle is definitely unique, so if you pick her up out of the blue and you try playing her, well, you're not gonna have a lot of success unless you just happen to be some hidden Anivia god. And last but not least, your wall not only can it be great for your team, but you can wall off your team by accident and then have someone die because of it. But in the number 2 spot, I'm going to be talking about a champion that I feel like is probably the most underrated AP mid lane in the game. I rarely see Zara in the mid lane and just in my games in general, and if I ever do see her every 1 or 200 games, she's probably on the support role. She really is a solid champion. I mean, the damage she can dish out is very surprising, and almost no one really understands how much damage she can really do. So you have her passive, which deals true damage, which of course in the tank meta is not too bad at all. The only problem is that it is a passive when you die, so it's kind of useless up until that point. But I feel like Zara excels in the laning phase if you use her abilities properly and in good succession, and you abuse the power of your plants in the laning phase. You can do so much harass damage that most other mid laners cannot do anything against you, except for someone like LeBlanc. So with that being said, I feel like Zara is able to win the majority of matchups mid lane just from the sheer amount of damage she can do with her abilities, her plants, and the CC that she can provide with her E ability, especially if you get a gank. Her ultimate also offers some pretty nice AoE control. You throw it down in the middle of a team fight, everyone takes a lot of damage, your plants do a lot more damage as well since they get increased attack speed, and then it throws everyone in the air just for bonus. So when you combine that and the fact that her E ability can snare as many people as you want as long as you hit everyone, it works together quite nicely. Her W seed can also be used as a ward since you can have 4 on the ground, which is pretty cool. And overall, just a very underrated champion that I really am surprised why I don't see her more often. The cons of Zara, like I said, one is her passive. It only gets utilized when you're dead, and I honestly think it's a worse version of Karthus' passive. You have to properly utilize her W with the plants, and you have to always use your abilities in the right succession. So for instance, use your W, then your E, then your W, then your Q. Not only if you mess this up, you're gonna lose a lot of damage, but if you're not used to it, it can be very awkward. And also not the best siege power. I mean, yes, you can throw some Qs and Es down and do some damage and throw some plants as well, but the tower one-shots plants, and I mean, it's not really the best type of abilities for poke or siege. But in the number 1 spot is going to be a champion I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with because you've seen him so often in my top 5 underrated list, Velkoz. I mean, he's still not popular, he's still not picked often in the mid lane, and I really honestly don't understand why. Especially when you talk about solo queues, someone like a Velkoz who just has a flat out absurd amount of damage can definitely carry games. Granted, he's a very difficult champion to play since he is purely skill shot oriented, but if you can land these skill shots, I mean, you're going to be doing so much damage that you'll be surprised yourself. So I usually make the comparison between Velkoz and Xerath, and I truly think that Velkoz is just a stronger version of Xerath. Now that doesn't mean he's a better version. Xerath is much safer and he can dish out the damage much more consistently and safely. But Velkoz has much more burst damage. I mean, if you take into account his full combo rotation where you throw out the W, throw out the E, the Q, the W, the ult, and you proc your passive as much as possible from this rotation, you'll deal about 600 or so true damage alone on top of all the magic damage you're dealing as well. Absolutely absurd damage. He offers a decent amount of CC since his Q slows, his E is a knockback type effect which is really useful, and you have an ultimate which also slows everyone within the laser. He probably has the best poke potential out of all the champions I've mentioned in this list because his Q has a lot of range if you use it properly, his W can be decent as well, and his E ability can catch someone off or your team can just collapse on him. Overall, this is just kind of a more ham version of Zerath where if you do your damage and you do your combos properly, you're going to be doing a buttload of damage. But he is a lot more risky, which is the main con that I'm going to mention. He's a mid-range caster, not someone that can kind of chill in the back for the whole team fight and just be safe. People will get onto him a lot easier than someone like a Zerath, but he can melt a team much easier. Alright guys, that is my top 5 underrated list for this patch. I hope you have learned something new, maybe found some new champions to play. Definitely check out the Alpha Draft contest that is happening. It's free to enter and you might have a chance to play with yours truly in a League of Legends game. But either way, if you guys did enjoy it, throw in a like, share it with your friends, and I hope to see you for the next one. Peace!